Hello, everyone. I'm Chrissy Butis. I'm the Chief Government Affairs Officer at NJBIA. I'd like to welcome you to our 2020 Public Policy Forum. Our title of our panel discussion today is Challenges and Solutions for Driving Innovation in the Garden State. This is clearly an issue that NJBIA is extremely passionate about. In fact, we actually have reclaiming innovation in New Jersey in our vision statement. And so we're very excited today to be joined by several panelists. Majority Leader Assemblyman Lou Greenwald, representing the 6th Legislative District. Dr. Joel Bloom, who is the president of the New Jersey Institute of Technology and a board member at NJBIA. Rodney Priestley, who is the Vice Dean for Innovation and Professor of Chemical and Biological Engineering at Princeton University, as well as Judith Sheft, who serves as the Executive Director of the New Jersey Commission on Science, Innovation, and Technology. Certainly something that NJBIA has supported and will continue to do so. What I was hoping to do just briefly before we start kicking it over to our guests is to give you a quick summary of NJBIA's recently released Indicators of Innovation report. I'm sure many of you have seen it already, but I want to just hit on some of the high points that I hope will help guide some of our conversation today. Again, with the goal of trying to make sure NJBIA, as well as our policymakers and the state, reclaim its stature as the innovation hub that it certainly can be. So we analyzed 12 indicators, and they really focused in 3 different areas, which was in capital, talent, and our business climate. And in that report, we also put forward some policy recommendations to try to get us there. And I'm really interested to hear from our panelists today what their vision is for our innovation economy moving forward. So some of the challenges that we saw based on our report was obviously we have a very high tax state. We also lose the most of our first-time New Jersey college students to other states. So we certainly want to keep our talented students here in New Jersey. And we also had significantly less venture capital investment and federal research development awards than some of our competitor states. So we know that Massachusetts and New York remain the leaders in innovation in our region. New Jersey basically ranked in the middle. So we really want to focus our conversation a lot today on the role of capital and making sure that we're able to increase our venture capital, making sure that we have funding for startups and small businesses, receiving small business innovation research and small business technology transfer program awards. Really critical to making sure we have money and funds coming into the state. We want to make sure that we have more R&D expenditures, that we support such things as the Commission for Innovation, Science, and Technology. We also know that our talent is key. So again, making sure that we have educated employees is really critical to ensuring an innovation ecosystem. And again, making sure that we retain those college students to the best of our ability at our own higher ed institutions. And again, I know that we talk a lot about our business climate, but it certainly does play a role when we do have some of the highest taxes in the region, both on the personal income tax as well as the corporate business tax, not to mention property taxes. So when we combine all of these things and all these factors, we find that New Jersey basically ranks in the middle compared to our competitors and other regional states. And so our conversation today is, let's get us to number 1 or as close to number 1 as we can. And I'm really curious and excited to hear from our panelists who work on this day in and day out about some of their thoughts. So without further ado, let's kick it over to our guests this afternoon. So folks, you're all leaders in your respective fields. So can you tell me a little bit about what your vision is for an innovation ecosystem? And I hope to go in the order in which I introduced you. So Majority Leader, you're up first. So what is your vision for an innovation ecosystem in the state?
Chris, thank you. I think for New Jersey, we have what I would call tremendous bones already in place and an opportunity to build off of. I think we have underutilized some of our greatest aspects. We have the #1 public education system, kindergarten to 12th grade, now 3 years running. And we have invested more in public education than any other state in the country. And just as this investment is our most precious investment, our children that we all love so dearly, is about ready to return on that investment, that ROI. We have the highest out-migration of graduating seniors of any state in the country. And last charted year, I think it's 2018, we lost 28,000 graduating seniors out of state. These are some of our best and brightest. And the reality is that we should be offering programs that are incentivized to help them stay in New Jersey. And I don't mean just education dollars, because our state higher education systems are some of the finest in the country, and they are already the best deal in town. But if we could create a pathway to employment, co-op programs in some of our leading industries that they would be willing to stay and be attracted to, we would continue to create that cycle of our children staying, returning on the investment, and then growing their children here. We'll come back, I'm sure, but what troubles me the most in New Jersey in our budgeting process is, I think we have the self-fulfilling prophecy that we look at New Jersey as an unattractive place to retire or to build a business, or it's unfriendly from a tax standpoint. And this has now been through Democrat theme to that in both Democrat and Republican administrations, is that at the end of the day, we are chasing what I call the property tax crisis in this state. And I think it's the most crippling tax. It's the most discriminatory tax. And our budget process year after year tries to find other ways to abate that problem without really digging in and solving it. So we do what I call death by 1,000 cuts. We impose taxes on the wealthy, we impose taxes on business, and it all gets sucked into a broken tax system that ultimately goes into the vapors of the local property tax crisis in this state. And so that ultimately affects business. It affects young people and their ability to stay in New Jersey. And those young people are part of that 28,000 graduating high school students that leave to go to another state for greener pastures and an opportunity. And I'll close with this. I was fascinated when Governor Murphy, I think, raised in I think it was one of his State of the State speeches about Massachusetts. And it's not lost on anybody who will be following this that Massachusetts is, as Governor Murphy alluded to, considered a high tax state. Yet they have interesting proposals that allow for businesses to go there to invest in research and development. And New Jersey has that opportunity. We have an opportunity to invest in some of our leading industries like healthcare. We saw a tremendous reduction in unemployment during the Affordable Care Act. New Jersey is getting ready to launch that. We have an opportunity with a President-elect Biden coming in to look at environmental infrastructure and developments of the environment that are safe and sound, have a view to the future of protecting our planet and our globe, and at the same time generating competing forces in research and development job growth. But none of that is going to be possible if we continue to evaporate those good bones that we talked about. And one of those is the state's failure in Republican and Democratic administrations to invest in higher education and our four-year systems. That's what other states have done, like Massachusetts. And we don't, because we are in this constant death spiral of trying to keep up with property taxes. And I know that's not always looked at as part of the business climate, but when you ultimately dig down to what are the problems we face, what are the difficult decisions that we make, it ultimately ties back into the fact that we are making one decision after another to try to keep up with the property tax crisis, as to having a conversation around true tax reform in New Jersey that allows the state to grow organically.
Thanks, Majority Leader. Dr. Bloom, I know you've spent a lot of time on this issue, so please tell us about your vision.
First of all, let me build on the Majority Leader's bones. I like that analogy. And we do have outstanding K-12 bones. We know that. We know about the loss. So let me go micro and then I'll go macro again. Micro, in 1995, NJIT said, yes, we're losing the best and the brightest. And for our disciplines, a STEM university, we need the best and the brightest. So we started an honors college in 1995 with 26 students. Today, it's a residential honors college, 700 students, average entering SATs over 1,500. Recall 1,600 is a perfect score. Those are students we're able to keep in the state. They are leaders on my campus. They are leaders when they go out into business and industry. That's some of the talent pool which we must keep in the state of New Jersey. As the majority leader has said, it's about the talent pool. We also need to attract talent. So NJIT, 7 years ago, started a hiring of new faculty. Over the past 7 years, we hired 150 new faculty, particularly again in the STEM disciplines. They have to have the state-of-the-art knowledge. They have to understand innovation and entrepreneurship beyond being just outstanding educators and researchers. So that new talent and those students are driving the growth of NJIT in multiple areas, including diversity. But let me focus a little on, there are now 3 R1 universities in the state of New Jersey. NJIT is the newest, Princeton is there, and Rutgers is there. R1 is very important, as I know Rodney knows, and I've served as a reader on some of the federal grants. The R1 applications, the proposals seem to always be on the top. So R1 is only 131 R1 universities in the nation. We happen to be the second smallest. It's a 3-year Carnegie classification. To maintain that R1, we all need match money. Well, as my budget continues to get reduced as the state's public polytech, I'm beginning to take my match money, which I get through my research grants, and I need to put into my operating money. To the Assemblyman's last point, we cannot continue to produce the kind of workforce, the kind of research that builds the innovation and the entrepreneurship by reduction. You have to do it through a top line. And we truly need to rethink the funding of higher education, not only to make sure that 2 of the 3 R1s are public universities, that we have that infrastructure. New Jersey, the majority leader brought up Massachusetts. So I was the co-chair of the state's committee's work study committee on doing R&D in the state of New Jersey. Here's what we learned, but we knew it. We know what Massachusetts does. We know what California does. We know what Pennsylvania, Maryland, I can go, even the newest in that group, Utah. What is it that they do? They support the research in their state, but they support the ecosystem. And more importantly, which we have yet to do, which I am a strong advocate of, we must network the ecosystems. We must network the incubators. There was a new hub started in New Brunswick just this past week. A lot of publicity. Princeton has an innovation hub. NJIT has got the largest and oldest innovation center in the state of New Jersey. It's now called Venturely. We need to network those hubs. We need to network the research universities. We don't get together unless, yes, NJIT, Rutgers, and Princeton got together. I think it was a $29 million grant we got from National Institute of Health on the transference issue of research into practice, into application. That's one effort. We need those efforts ongoing. So we need the talent in the state. We need to grow the talent both on the education research side. We need to grow the talent in our classrooms. We need to get our undergraduates, as NJIT does. We fund over the summer 300 students in research projects. We already have had 2, including the Commission on Science, Innovation, and Technology, which I also have the good fortune of serving on that board and worked with Judith for years. We have gotten one of our undergraduate research projects that got hooked up with a faculty member at NJIT. It is now, 2 of those students came through the Honors College, by the way, as Judith may recall. Mm-hmm. They are now working with a faculty member. Those are one of the SBIR grants, went to that company, Oculomotor, that they started. That grew organically at NJIT. And it's also an international partnership with other R&D happening in Europe. So that's yes, it takes time, but some things we could do much more quickly. And the networked ecosystem is a must. that we've talked about it for years here in the state of New Jersey. We need the research universities, particularly those three R1s working together. We need the incubators working together. We need to bring business and industry. And since the majority leader is on this panel, we also should not forget about our military infrastructure in the state of New Jersey. I happen to do a lot of work with the Air Force. I know about our joint base. We do a massive amount of work with Picatinny. Talk about economic drivers. Picatinny and the joint base are economic drivers in those regions in which they reside. It is incumbent upon us to make sure that we as a economic engine in the state of New Jersey, I'm talking about the innovation hubs and the universities, we also work with those, that some of that military infrastructure. So what we concluded in the panel of the study group that I led, the co-led with Debbie Hart, is New Jersey is lacking the kind of critical infrastructure for ecosystems that we see prevalent in the other states that are growing faster, and some recent upstarts have surpassed us. And it comes down to, as the majority leader has already said, we need a plan, we need funding, and we need the right people at the table applying that funding. And the funding is, again, in part to support that critical infrastructure, the ecosystem. So thank you, and I hope some of that comes to fruition in the near term.
I'm sure we're going to delve into that a little bit further as the conversation continues, Dr. Bloom. Vice Dean Priestley, I'd love to hear what your vision is.
Great, thanks for having me. Delighted to be a part of this panel and representing Princeton University. I'd say my vision for the innovation ecosystem in New Jersey is quite simple. In fact, it's one in which research and scholarship that's developed at NJ's higher institutions of higher ed can move beyond campuses and have an impact. I think academic institutions are still the undisputed centers for knowledge creation and research that can have an impact on society. But in order for that to happen, we have to create avenues and infrastructures in which we can translate that work off campus to have an impact. Secondly, again, I think is one in which academic institutions in the state can partner with the private sector, with the local industry here to help translate our work. I think academic institutions have something to offer by way of talent, facilities, et cetera, that's going to be critical to the industry in the state of New Jersey. And then finally, one of the things as President Bloom mentioned, I think the system is one in which it's inclusive. I don't think we can build out the New Jersey innovation ecosystem if it's not inclusive. We won't reach our full potential. I'd also like to comment on something else the president made with regards to networking. I think that's critical. In my role as Vice Dean for Innovation, there's very few things I want to do at Princeton University that would be solely for faculty and students and the alumni of the university. In fact, everything I want to do, I wanted to move beyond campus. And when I took on this role in February, in fact, the very first large project that I took on was one in which involved multiple institutions in the state, including NJIT and Rutgers that were mentioned earlier. And this is the submission of a large NSF I-Core Hub proposal that would involve Princeton, NJIT, Rutgers, as well as Rowan University, again, to network and build out the innovation ecosystem, because I think that's one of the key missing pieces here in terms of growing New Jersey innovation ecosystem. The universities collaborating with one another, our incubator spaces collaborating with one another, and basically having this kind of shared vision. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think we're all on this panel committed to making it happen, and I'm delighted to be a part of it.
Great, thank you. And Executive Director Sheft, would you mind sharing your vision as well?
Certainly, certainly. So our innovation ecosystem in New Jersey is really made up of a lot of different stakeholders and piece parts, and we've heard about some of the players. We certainly have our innovators, our startup companies. We have people from academia, whether it's our faculty and our students. We have people on the funding side, whether it's private investors, foundations, venture capitalists, angel investors, the federal government. And we have a variety, clearly, of federal and state agencies who are part of it. And we have the media and then organizations such as NJBIA who help bring us all together. And the whole focus and real role of these ecosystems is to help bring innovations to life, to bring them to the marketplace so that we can solve these real world problems in a more efficient and effective fashion. And so what does this ultimately mean for us in New Jersey? What does it mean for our citizens in New Jersey? It means we're going to get products and services that are going to solve the problems that we need. And we've certainly seen with the COVID crisis how the innovation ecosystem came to action with some of the activities at Rutgers University to help address some of the testing challenges around COVID, where different pieces came together and we were able to bring a new technology to the marketplace for the betterment of our citizens. But in addition to that, the outcome needs to be additional jobs, because we're going to get these innovations driving more job creation. And then we'll start to create a cluster of knowledge around particular areas. You know, President Bloom talked about the military areas. We've got clusters of knowledge around things that happen with military Picatinny Arsenal. We've got clusters in life sciences, which again is a big area, so that our innovation ecosystems help drive these clusters and knowledge. The other pieces that are important from a vision standpoint is that we have an inclusive innovation ecosystem, regardless of race, sex, ethnicity, background, whether you went to college, you didn't go to college, whether you're young, whether you're old. We need to have everybody in the pool because we need the ideas from everybody. And we know that a more inclusive ecosystem is going to be a more higher performing ecosystem for us. And so my vision is that we've got an efficient, effective ecosystem. It's inclusive, we're communicating, we're transparent, and we're sharing resources between the various organizations.
While you're on that point, can you just share a little bit about how you feel the commission and what role they're going to play in actually creating that type of ecosystem? I know that you have, obviously, Dr. Bloom, I believe you sit on the commission, as well as folks from industry and also from government. So can you just share a little bit about that, Judith, please?
Certainly. So the commission was restarted by Governor Murphy in 2018, and I joined actually in January, just a few weeks before COVID hit, as a matter of fact. And so the mission of the commission is to help strengthen the innovation economy within the state, encouraging collaboration between industry and academia, and helping to catalyze the commercialization of ideas around the innovation pathway. So that if we look at different organizations within the state who are all focused on businesses, our key sweet spot is being able to focus on startup companies who have some sort of innovation as really the basis of their business. So some of the things that we've done from the commission, and proud to say that on Friday at the commission's meeting, we just announced round 2 of our SBIR, STTR direct financial support program, so that we've got some funding. Certainly we'd obviously like a little bit more funding, but we've got funding that we're able to give out to technology-based businesses who are part of that SBIR, STTR programming, to help them get the funding so that they can be stronger and they can commercialize their innovations. Additionally, we look to really be that catalyst to help try to bring people together to the table. And, you know, again, there was some discussion earlier about how different universities are coming together. One of the other proposals that a number of universities are working on is a program called NSF Advance, and that brings together women researchers and faculty and students from across our universities, and we're trying to get them interested in getting their innovations commercialized, because again, we know if we look at startups and innovation, women and underrepresented minorities have a much smaller participation percentage. And so we're going to be applying to the National Science Foundation. Actually, in this particular proposal, NJIT is going to be taking the lead, but Rutgers, Princeton, Rowan, Stevens, St. Peter's University, NJCU, our community colleges, we're all part of it to try to help enhance the commercialization from an inclusive standpoint.
Yeah, that's really great to hear about all the inclusiveness happening. Before I kick it over to the majority leader to talk about the role government can play in enhancing the innovation ecosystem. I do briefly want to hear from both Dr. Bloom and our Vice Dean about what's happening on your respective, at your respective institutions related to innovation. So Dr. Bloom, do you want to kick it off?
Well, we've been talking about, statewide infrastructures. The first thing we had to do at NJIT is build our infrastructure, create a robust research office, a research office that knows our IP, that can take us to commercialization. As you know, we incubate businesses on our campus. We have currently 60. But one of the things we also decided we had to do was create a platform. To the Vice Dean's point, how do you bring business and industry? How do you bring government? How do you bring military into an academic institution to have access to the resources, to the intellect, to the equipment, to the facilities, particularly, again, being a polytechnic university? And we created in 2012, Judith was a part of this, the New Jersey Innovation Institute, the portal and platform where those folks can come together, particularly in the high demand industries of the state of New Jersey, like the pharma, like the life sciences, like the transportation, like the environmental issues. So we have at NJIT a separate corporation called the New Jersey Innovation Institute that becomes the interface, becomes that connected network, that connected ecosystem for innovation and entrepreneurship. But I cannot leave the issue of talent and facilities. And since the majority leader is on the panel, facilities. As the majority leader knows, it was 2012 when we had a bond issue, first one in 10 years. NJIT and many others did very well. We wound up adding classrooms. We renovated over 90 labs. We built the life sciences and engineering building. We just found that money and had all the plans in place because we were talking about this for years. So we need either an authority in the state of New Jersey, as 48 other states have, that continue to fund the facilities as well as the repair and the replacement for our public institutions. Yeah, let's see, that was, did I say 22? 2022 is coming up, Assemblymen, and we can go back and talk about another bond issue. The facilities are critical. We have 90 renovated labs. I can't attract 150 faculty from top-ranked institutions without giving them, as Rodney knows well, first-class lab space. You can't produce the workforce without a maker space. Some of you have been to the maker space. It is the largest, most robust makerspace, I think, in the East Coast. We partner with small manufacturing, large manufacturing, and we're educating students about advanced manufacturing. We have state-of-the-art equipment that very often is donated, like Stryker donated a hip and body parts machine. So the issue of makerspace. Last month, we opened up something called Biocentric. Biocentric is cell and gene therapy. We did it with business and industry partners. They funded a big chunk of it, as did the state. So we need to be on the cutting edge. You need to have the talent in your faculty, in your students. Again, you need those facilities. But as we know, we need the buildings, new or renovated, to put those labs, those faculty, those students in. We added 1 million square feet as a result of the 2012 Bond Act to our campus. And that just took us from a little over 8 million students to nearly 8 million. 8,000 to close to 12,000 students now. Our students graduate with 3 and 4 job offers in hand, and we're still not meeting the demand in the state of New Jersey for a STEM educated workforce.
Great, thanks, Dr. Bloom. Vice Dean?
Thank you. I think most would agree that for innovation and entrepreneurship to grow at an academic institution, there must be unwavering commitment from the upper leadership at the universities, and that's true here at Princeton. But the initiative also must start at the bottom. It must be a bottom-up initiative, something that's driven by the faculty, the students, and the researchers, i.e. the people who are actually on the ground doing the research and innovation. And I think now is that time at Princeton where we have unwavering commitment from the top, but there's growth and interest in innovation and entrepreneurship across the entire community, the faculty, the students, and the alumni. And so we recognize that now is an opportune time to grow Princeton innovation. And as a result of that, the university created this position that I'm fortunate to hold now earlier this year, the Vice Dean for Innovation. That allowed for us to create a structure that we think is going to more support innovation here at Princeton, because now under one umbrella, the Office of the Dean for Research, we essentially have now a research, innovation, and entrepreneurship pipeline to be able to serve our community. And as a result of that, we're launching new programs to support Princeton innovation and entrepreneurship. I'll touch upon some of our older programs and then highlight some of the new ones that we're launching here as well. Princeton doesn't have any professional schools, for instance, so it doesn't have a business school. And so to train our students in entrepreneurship, we have something called the Keller Center that sits in the School of Engineering that's extremely popular, in which we have about a quarter of our undergraduate students take courses in innovation and entrepreneurship. You know, recognizing that training was critical and the fact that our faculty are not getting that level of support, one of the first things I did here was create a partnership with the Wharton Business School at the University of Pennsylvania to offer executive education to our faculty who are interested in entrepreneurship, so that when new ventures spin out from their labs, they have the ability to walk in and take advisory roles. With regards to our graduate students and postdocs, we just formed another partnership with Techstars, one of the leading accelerators in New York City, to train our graduate students and postdocs in intensive education around innovation and entrepreneurship, essentially to prepare them for when they're ready to take their inventions and innovations off campus and create new startups. They have the skills necessary to do so, but then also the larger network as well that's critical for them to spin out these new ventures. We have something on campus called the Princeton Entrepreneurship Council, which helps to drive the culture here on campus around entrepreneurship in terms of putting on a range of different programming activities to support innovation and entrepreneurship amongst our faculty, students, and alumni. As an example, the Princeton Entrepreneurship Council, along with another organization, Corporate Engagement Foundation Relation, recently put on Princeton's first Innovation and Entrepreneurship Conference, Engage 2020, which welcomed over 3,300 people digitally to this conference, in which we had over 57 sessions, 170 speakers, all on various topics related to innovation and entrepreneurship. I mentioned corporate engagement and foundation relations. I'll also mention our Office of Technology Licensing. These are critical for innovation and entrepreneurship. And when we think about them here at Princeton, our driver, we're fortunate, is that it's not about bringing in revenue to campus. It's about how can we support the innovation that's done here on campus and helping to drive that innovation off campus. And so we're delighted to have colleagues in corporate engagement and foundation relations and technology licensing who agree with that mission, that our real purpose here is not necessarily revenue driven, but impact driven. And so we're delighted for that. Again, we believe that partnerships are critical here at Princeton. And so as an example, 2 years ago, the university formed something called the Princeton Catalysis Initiative, which is a new initiative on campus that's designed to encourage innovative research across different departments on campus, but also amongst faculty and the big pharma industry in the state of New Jersey. I'll finish up and say that, two of the things that are critical for me in terms of success and things that I think about is when we have new ventures form out of research here at Princeton, how do I keep those new ventures in New Jersey? We have so many success stories where upstart startups raise millions of dollars in seed in series A funding, seed funding, but the VC firms wants them located in Silicon Valley or in Boston and Cambridge. We want those ventures to remain here in the state of New Jersey. And so one of the challenges that I'm dealing with, or I would say issues that I'm trying to resolve, is how do we keep those high performing startups in the state of New Jersey. And then the second thing is recognizing that academic research by its very nature is high risk, right? Which means it's not going to be extremely attractive to VC funding. And so some states and some institutions have recognized that and realized that in order to make this high risk research, that also means there's a lot of market uncertainty. The university has to fill in that gap. It essentially has to fill in that long runway that's required for academic startups to succeed. And so that's one of the things that I'm driving here, or trying to drive here at Princeton, is to make sure that the university recognizes the difference, I would say, between tech-based startups and academic-based startups and the different needs, and make sure that we can fill the needs for academic-based startups.
Yeah, that's absolutely great feedback. And Majority Leader, I know that, you know, the innovation economy has been certainly a passion of yours, and hearing some really great ideas. Would love to hear more from you about, you know, the role government plays and, you know, what would help move the needle. So floor is yours.
Well, Christina, I'm very interested in the comments from the fellow panelists, because I think it really just continues to point out that there needs to be a partnership between state and state government and private sector if we're going to be successful at this. And we need creative solutions that we're working on together, not, you know, sound bites, but really a deep dive in public policy. You know, there are a couple of hurdles I think we have to overcome. Every time we talk about these types of programs or incentives, it gets tagged by certain groups as corporate welfare. And I don't agree with that. I think it is an investment back in some of our greatest institutions, and it is an opportunity to grow and succeed. I think, you know, we have to start with the mindset that New Jersey's assets include 112,000 jobs that come from the life sciences. New Jersey has the #1 concentration of any state in the country of engineers and scientists. And that is a firm foundation with which to build upon. I love, you know, Judith's comments that I would like to build upon, and I think work on public policy. But imagine a world of public policy where we work together with these institutions of higher education and our industries and life sciences to identify graduating high school students, women and people of color that are underrepresented in these industries, get them interested through co-op programs, internships in health sciences, in health planning, in pharmaceutical research and development, in marketing of these very key components, and start to guide them in an educational opportunity in New Jersey through our institutions of higher learning that then ultimately have a pathway directly to jobs in those industries. Wouldn't it be wonderful if New Jersey wasn't just focused then, if you built that properly, not only on retaining that outmigration of graduating high school students from New Jersey, but then became a destination point for graduating high school seniors from other states around the country that would look to come to New Jersey to also take advantage of those opportunities. Now, some people would say, well, why would we put state taxpayers' dollars into students coming from out of state? Because we want those students, as we've talked about on this conversation, on this panel, to not just come here, but to stay here and to build upon the opportunities that are here. The other thing is, when I look at these incentive programs, and you know, we start them with opportunities that, you know, we start them, I think, with a mindset to they're not finished products, and how do we improve upon them? But from a simple standpoint, when I look at the incentive programs that went into Camden, you look at a success story there. When President Obama comes to New Jersey and calls the Camden experiment a national model of urban redevelopment, not that that model can't be improved upon, not that we didn't build it under one administration, we should look to see where we take it next, but it is a foundation of success. And when I say that to you, in 2011, when we started the experiment, the unemployment rate in Camden was 19%. In March of 2020, before COVID, it was 7.7%. That's a success story. And how we recover from COVID because of the foundations that are in place, also becomes a model that we could then replicate and take to Atlantic City, take to Trenton, take to Patterson, and mirror that success. I'm intrigued by what's going on in Atlantic City. I think an opportunity to build around a university like Stockton that are doing creative programs and took advantage of public-private partnership with South Jersey Industries to build a campus, as well as with a leading health provider, Atlantic Care, to not only provide services, but to create jobs, is an exciting and interesting opportunity. President Bloom talked a little bit about New Jersey assets. I think one of the things that we need to focus on in this, where the state can help, is how do we create incentives for industry to go to the abandoned assets that we have seen through COVID, whether it's commercial real estate or whether it's, you know, the endless line of strip malls, and how do we repurpose those to take advantage of that marketplace, either through mixed use opportunities to attract housing opportunities, affordable housing, for workforce housing for our children that are graduating from college, and to build upon that. And then, you know, I'll give you one fun example of the tax credits that, you know, I think we just gloss over, but it's an example. It's a small example of how this can work. So years ago, under Governor McGreevey, I worked on the film tax credit, and it was, you know, it was fun and it was exciting. Sopranos was a big hit show on HBO at the time. A bunch of the actors came to Haddonfield and participated with the young men and women in the theater program at Haddonfield High School. We had a great turnout, lots of press, great program. Governor Christie comes in, ultimately eliminates the program, didn't believe in the tax credit program. Governor Murphy, to his credit, reinstituted the program. And last year, that film tax credit program, small investment, generated $420 million for the state of New Jersey and was a 247% growth over the previous year. These tax credits can work, and it created jobs, not just in the industry, but jobs for union workers, and the ripple effect of suppliers, vendors, small businesses that supported that industry. We're seeing a tremendous loss of small businesses that are going out of business, disappearing because of COVID. We need to have this type of investment that not only stabilizes the foundational points that we've talked about on this panel, but allows for that ripple effect, as I call it, that multiplier and that growth of the small businesses in New Jersey and the job opportunities that exist there. And, you know, and that to me is where the passion is. It is a bottom up, top down approach, however you want to look at it, but it covers multiple sectors here. But it begins with trying to find an organic infrastructure in New Jersey from a tax system that makes New Jersey attractive for people to come, puts our investment in our young people in the next generation, and stabilizes our economy around the foundational points that we have. And we're fortunate to have those life sciences, 23 of the top 30 pharmaceutical or 13 of the top 20 pharmaceutical companies in the country in our backyard. Number one employer being healthcare and health sciences. We have strong foundations with which to build upon, and we need to make this investment.
Majority Leader, you hit on the topic of assets that New Jersey has to offer, and I would love to hear from some of our other panelists as well. Can you talk a little bit about how you would sell New Jersey? Why would an entrepreneur and or a large corporation want to come to New Jersey to invest in our vision for an innovation ecosystem?
Christy, just before we go there, I just
Sure.
want to build on something that the majority leader said. The issue of articulation, of moving students from elementary, middle, and high school onto university campuses and then industry jobs. So 30 years ago, NJIT started a Center for Pre-College Education. We did it so that we can have a more diverse student enrollment, underrepresented women and minorities in the STEM fields. Today, 250 students of our entering freshman class, 1,400 students, are coming through our pre-college program, which is grades 4 through 12. It's a year-round program, and they're in Newark and other students in the surrounding urban neighborhoods. That has also produced the outcome for NJIT, where we are typically ranked in the top 20 for producing minority engineers, African American, Hispanic, and now in computer science as well in the nation. So we must build that pipeline. And the other critical challenge in that pipeline is the population coming to our university campuses is changing. The minority population will soon be the majority population, particularly coming again to our public universities in the state of New Jersey. That carries with it some other characteristics. We're also concerned of the family income and backgrounds that many of these students have. And I know this has been widely touted. We have succeeded by taking more students from low-income family backgrounds and post-graduation as alums of NJIT, they go from the bottom quintile of family income to the upper quintile. And we've been ranked #1 in the nation for doing that. So we do need to build that system in the state of New Jersey to grow the talent that's here and also to attract other talent. And by the way, Assemblyman, The Sopranos film, Judith will remember
Yes, yes, I remember.
on our campus for, I don't know, a week to 10 days. So we got part of that little pie from that tax credit.
Yeah.
It is a more longer story. I won't go into it now, but and we've been a site because of some of what our buildings look like. We've been a site for many commercials, and I think some other TV and/or movies. So yes, actually, I was speaking with Senator Lesniak about that tax credit just a couple days ago. So thank you for that too.
You're welcome.
And Joel, you may remember that one of our School of Management, Martin Tuckman School of Management faculty had done the original assessment of the tax credit program for the EDA at the time.
Yes, thank you. I now do.
So also building upon that collaboration between all stakeholders and leaders, the business community obviously sees a very vested interest in this, from keeping our talent here, from making sure our businesses are able to grow, to thrive, to make sure we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the region. And as the majority leader mentioned, in light of COVID, obviously being able to rebound off of what is, a much larger economic issue than even the Great Recession ahead of us. So from your perspectives, how can each of our various sectors, whether it's business, academia, government, really help one another? And just try to be as specific as you can. Judith, I don't know if you wanted to head off.
Yeah, so I think it's, one of the challenges that I saw when I had been in the university sector that I used to keep hearing from industry was they said they felt like there was a curtain in front of the university that was hard to navigate. It was hard to figure out if they wanted to get access to something. They didn't know what front door to go in, or if they were even knocking at the right academic institution. So some of the things that, that we've been doing has been, like, as an example, the Research with New Jersey portal, which is supposed to be a way to enable individuals who are looking to find faculty, who are looking to find core facilities, or looking to find intellectual property at our universities, as a way to be able to know, where do I go into? Both Rodney and Dr. Bloom, talked about the kind of the front doors that they have built at their institutions, the corporate engagement office at Princeton University, NJII at NJIT, so that if you are a corporate, whether you're a big corporate or a small organization looking to try to get access to our universities, you've got a place to go, someone to talk to who isn't just going to say, oh, that's not my job, why don't you try calling over here to this other office, so that there really is an interest on the part of our academic institutions in trying to pull those pieces together. Additionally, for our smaller businesses, part of the thing that they would like from the large corporates is they'd like to be able to get some feedback on what they're doing, as well as potential beta trials for technology that they're working on. Some of the large corporates will, sponsor cohorts, will sponsor competitions to enable to get access to look at some of these early stage technologies that then they can try out in their own corporate settings and really give some great feedback to our innovators and entrepreneurs, so that we've got a lot of big corporates, whether it's the life sciences company, whether we've got people in the chemicals industry, communications industry, so that we've got these entrepreneurs who don't necessarily have those resources. And so part of what I think the role of government with the role of my commission is to be able to help make those linkages, to make those introductions for the people so that they can help accelerate their pathway around commercialization.
Great, thank you. Anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, I'll just make a few comments here, regarding Princeton. That we're open, and we want to make sure that people are aware that as an institution, we are open for partnerships with government and the private sector. And some of the ways we're trying to signal that is with our large initiative around communications of Princeton innovation. Phase 1 of our new website is complete. Phase 2 will be complete in the spring, and we want it to be a manner in which an industry partner or someone from government can go to innovation.princeton.edu and find exactly where they should go to get the answer to their questions. But the way Princeton looks at this is, we want to be open and inviting as the community, and we do several things to invite the outside community to campus, and whether or not it's hosting conferences related to research that we do here, whether or not it's our Smart Cities conferences or hosting the Regional Academic Drug Discovery Conference or the IP China Roadshow that we've hosted on campus. These are ways in which we try and bring the outside industry to campus. Another way in which we do that is through something called Celebrate Princeton Innovation, which is a conference we put on every fall in which we highlight innovations that are coming out of the university, and we bring industry to come and learn about those innovations and ways in which they can partner with the university as well. I mentioned our Engage 2020 conference that recently happened, where about half of the attendance of that conference was from industry or government, and certainly half of the speakers as well as part of that conference. I wanted to go back to a point that was made about some of the things that may be unique to New Jersey at this point. I mean, maybe one could turn that question around and say, why not New Jersey? Someone has mentioned the history of New Jersey innovation and trying to get back to that point. And my view is that the people on this panel have already laid the foundation for innovation in New Jersey, and now it's just a time to build off that foundation in a collective manner. I just think the time is right, given all the people who've come together and have this vested interest in growing inclusive innovation in the state. Take for example the announcement that Governor Murphy made last week about the new hub in New Brunswick. How do we take advantage of that? How do we connect that with the hub that's at NJIT and the one at Princeton? So I think we're at this inflection point, or at this moment where all of these stakeholders want to move and drive change. And I think we just have to recognize, I think the latest scholarship perhaps says it takes about 20 years to build an innovation ecosystem. Of course, we don't want to wait that long. We're going to leapfrog that time frame. But given our location in the Northeast Corridor, the abundance of land here, the research institutions that we have in New Jersey, the facilities that we have at those research institutions, and the corporations that we have, I think we'll be there certainly sooner than 20 years.
Right.
Just to, Rodney reminded me talking about conferencing. So for 2 years in a row, NJIT partnered with Amazon, and we had the Amazon Alexa conference. And that was all about voice technology. We speak at 150 words a minute. We only keystroke at 50 words a minute. So we know the future of technology is about voice. And therefore, Amazon chose to partner with us because of some of the work that was going on at the university. In year 2 of that conference, when we ran it the second time, we had 7,000 people on the NJIT campus coming to Newark, New Jersey. We have a great airport just 15 minutes away. We've got a little light rail in the city that gets you from the airport right to the corner of our campus. And we happened to host that conference in our relatively new arena, a basketball arena, because when we built the arena, it's called the Wellness and Event Center. We knew property in any urban setting is scarce and expensive, and therefore let's build a building that's multi-purpose. So that's one of the roles that New Jersey can play just based on location. We know somewhere, I think the statistic is 40% of the nation's population is within a 2-hour drive of, in this case, Newark, New Jersey. So how do we capitalize that when we form these partnerships with Amazon or some of the other companies that we've talked about? And that needs to be the role, and they understood the role of building again this ecosystem. So, and it has to be state of the art, and that's the pressure on all of our institutions, including Princeton and NJIT and Rutgers and Stevens. How do you stay ahead of the curve, and how do you compete for the talent that you need to stay ahead of the curve? Not easy challenges or problems to solve, but that's where we need the partnership with the state, clearly the federal government, regional partnerships, and the partnerships with business and industry. And by the way, since I didn't say at the beginning, I think the report that you referred to, Chrissy, what NJBIA has been talking about, the loss of talent and the kind of ecosystem, you have served us well. Your constant reporting on those factors, those variables, is really raised the conversation in a number of sectors here in the state about how do we truly build the ecosystem and what are the component parts of it. So I want to thank NJBIA for doing that.
Dr. Bloom, thank you for those kind words, and to the team at NJBIA and specifically Nikki Sandelier. We want to be a part of the conversation, but more importantly, a part of the solution. And so we, are leaning into this conversation very, very aggressively and want to work with all of you. So thank you for that. I do know that we're coming up to our closing minutes. And so Majority Leader, I'd like to kick it over to you. Any final comments that you have as we conclude our conversation today, which I know still continues to be a start of a conversation and a collaboration, and much more to come in the future. So, Majority Leader.
Well, Chrissy, I'm very hopeful. I think it's important we live in such a world of disinformation and propaganda and partisanship. I think it's important to talk about the aspirations and the hope that we have. And I am very hopeful. All three of my children are pursuing their higher education careers, and I watch them and their friends, and I have tremendous hope for our future. I know we're living in difficult times. We are closer to the end of this pandemic than we are the beginning. The great work, including by some of our companies here in New Jersey, really as the holiday season of miracles comes along, the miracle being able to find a cure for this and to really be able to fight back on this virus gives me tremendous hope. And I think if we can stick together and continue to work together and really build for our future, we take a crisis like this, we learn from it, and we move forward. And, I hope everybody who is listening to this has probably this season more than most, a happy and healthy holiday season. I hope you find, something to be thankful for. I know it's been a very difficult year, but I think it is important to find the aspects of hope, and we just got to keep working and plugging ahead. We've been through tough times before, and for those that have lost someone they love, and for those who have contracted the virus and been sick, I wish everybody the best and the happiest and the healthiest of season. And thank you for including me in this. What you're doing, Chrissy, really is focusing, I think, where we need to be on the future. And, by focusing on innovation, by focusing on research and development, we don't know what the future holds, but when something like this happens again, the answer to those problems will come from the work of programs like this. So thank you.
No, thank you, and a healthy holiday to your family as well. And so appreciate having such an advocate in yourself in the New Jersey legislature. We look forward to continuing that partnership moving forward. Folks, any other closing remarks you'd like to add?
Yes, this is Judith. I guess, the one comment, in addition to being encouraged, I just think we need to be intentional about what we want to do in terms of building our overall innovation ecosystem so that we can align the piece parts that we have. And again, over the year that I've been in my role on the Commission on Science, Innovation, and Technology, I've really been very encouraged by the collaboration that I've seen amongst our various academic partners, the people from government, from private industry. I just see that we've got the pieces together, and I am, as I said, very encouraged that with an intentional focus, we can move forward.
Thank you, Judith. Dr. Bloom, any closing remarks?
So I think Judith and I have often shared that word intentional. And that's sometimes, there's many great people and great ideas out there, but we do need to coalesce around some of them within our state. And we have to be intentional about pursuing them. And a lot of this work, as has already been said, takes years to develop. And we also have to be intentional about being optimistic. The beauty of what almost all of us do is it gives us an opportunity to look a little bit at the future. And as the majority leader has said, when you look at, we have the luxury of seeing 12,000 of those optimistic young men and women on our campus. And there is no better place to be. I'm sure Rodney sees that at Princeton. There is no better place to be on a university campus. And even though we only had about 1/4 of our population there this fall semester, it's still, and battling the pandemic and battling the economic downturn. These folks, we do not lose our optimism for what we do and for our state and for the people and the forthcoming holidays. So a happy and healthy holiday to everyone. Thank you.
You as well, Dr. Bloom. Vice Dean, any quick closing remarks?
Sure, thank you. First, I'd like to say, thanks for having me, part of this panel. I really enjoyed it. Like everyone else has said, I'm very excited about the future of New Jersey innovation and entrepreneurship. And, I'll be brief and just, say that, Princeton University is committed. We're in it for the long haul. We're in it to partner with academic institutions in the state, government, private sector, et cetera. We see this, truly as a win-win. When I think about the innovation ecosystem, there's no one component that's more important than the other, right? There's no real leader in an ecosystem. Every component is equally important, equally critical, and we certainly look forward to doing our part to help make New Jersey innovation what it can be.
Well, thank you. I again want to thank all of our panelists. Happy holiday, because we are obviously filming right before Thanksgiving, and want to acknowledge all of our members who are playing a critical role in this space, both from the academic as well as from the business side, and to our legislative leaders who are trying to elevate this conversation. We are very appreciative, and again, know that NJBIA looks forward to serving as hopefully a convener, as someone who provides the research to help drive the conversation, and really are invested in trying to move this public policy initiative forward in any way that we can. And know that when we come to the table and talk about various policies, whether in healthcare, economic development, education, we're coming at it from a lens of moving the state forward. And so with that, I'll just conclude and thank you once again. And I know I will see and talk to all of you very soon. So thank you.